Yo, what is up? You have found We Like the Blazers. I am Brandon Goldner, and with me, as always, it is Ryan Whitledge. Ryan, what's up, dude?
Not much. I'm alive. I survived the festivities of last night, so and here we are.
Here we are indeed. We did survive the festivities, and also someone who survived the festivities is Evan McCarthy, our guest. He's a New Orleans-based artist by way of Portland, and just an all-around solid dude. You can find his work including stencil art, large and small prints of NBA players and other pop culture figures at evanm.com. Also, be sure to check out his top drops. It's like a mystery pack of 4x6 prints. They could include like Cliff Robinson and Dame and other people. Also has special colorways that you can't otherwise get on the site. Those are $30 a piece. I'm doing all the advertising for you, Evan. Here you are, and there's Fat Man in the background. Evan, what is up?
Here I am. Fat Man is here. I'm, feeling good. All things considered, the late night, these playoff games when they're played in the West Coast in New Orleans, they go late. So, I'm feeling a little bit from last night.
Oh, yeah, because New Orleans is Eastern time, right?
No.
Because when
No. Central time.
When I schedule...
Eastern time would be brutal.
Yeah, when I tried to schedule the podcast, I forgot what time zones were. So anyway, sorry about the mix-up there. But yeah.
If only you could look it up online somehow.
If only. The other thing, too, like the 7:30 game Pacific is extra late during the playoffs when it's like they have to bump them back for the game before. And
no. Boxing matches?
Yeah, boxing. That was bullshit. That was a bullshit move that ESPN pulled with that. Bumping it for boxing.
Boxing sucks. Like, come fight me, hypothetically, about... Well, it's not even a sport. Come on. That's not a sport. Hey, I'm just going to punch you in the face as much as I possibly can. It is a sport. There's a lot of talent with boxing. I'm kind of kidding. I don't like it. And also, yeah, that is a bullshit move.
I was going to say, Dame loves boxing, so watch out there. Don't piss him off.
It's a great workout. And it's, I make fun of a lot of sports. I make fun of baseball. I make fun of boxing. I used to make fun of soccer until I started playing it a little bit. Now I actually have a deeper appreciation of the most popular sport in the world. But Ryan, I feel like you might have some questions as an icebreaker of sorts, and not that we don't know each other, because we obviously do. But
this is true. But there's one man and one man only in which I feel as though these Venn diagrams overlap as much as they do for me. And so I actually titled this as Ryan has a few challenging questions for Evan, which I'm curious if he can guess where this is going. But I want to start this off. Number one question for you, Evan. What is the bigger backstab? Bananas stealing the cash or Ashley stealing the cash?
That is a great question. It's probably Ashley because, it's tough because Bananas laid the groundwork to do that move on the challenge. And if people don't know, we're talking about MTV's The Challenge, which is my favorite show of all time.
It's fantastic.
Bananas laid the groundwork, but also it was expected. Bananas is basically like a producer for that show. He knows what's good TV, so it's not shocking that he did it.
Wait. What the hell are you guys talking about? Can you give me a 30-second synopsis of the show that you're describing? Because I have no idea what it is.
It is, to quote Bill Simmons, it is the fifth American professional sport. It is literally, do you remember the old like Real World Road Rules challenge from back in the day?
Yeah.
This is now just called The Challenge, except they take people from all walks of reality television now, which I'm not a big fan of, especially them bringing the Brits in. That kind of throws me through a loop. But
they bringing in people from the Great British Bake Off, or what's going on?
Close.
Yeah,
it's just trash reality shows.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
like
have
Big Brother, like Survivor, like
exactly. Yeah,
okay.
Survivor, Big Brother.
Okay.
X on the beach, like
Greatest
all this crazy
Race,
stuff.
Yeah.
But in regards to the backstabbing, so there were a few seasons where they get to the end and it's a big cash prize. We're talking $500,000, $1 million, like a lot of money. And there's been a couple of seasons where it's partners that get to the end. And basically, if you win, whoever has like the best time or whatever from the final challenge, they can decide to take all the money or split it with their partner. So there's been twice where people have been like, I'm actually going to take all the money and my partner gets nothing. Where we're talking, once it was $500,000, once it was $1 million. So yeah. Makes for good TV.
It does. And then this leads me to my next question. Somebody who thinks he makes for good TV, how the hell do you feel about Fessy? I mean, That he has to be one of the most annoying characters I've ever seen on there.
Yeah, I mean, if we were to equate him to like an NBA player, I'm trying to think. He's very cocky for a dude that's never won. And he acts like he's won. I don't know, like Dwight Howard before he won with the Lakers, maybe. Like,
so we're talking about Chris Paul then right now.
Yeah, but Fessie's more arrogant than Chris Paul. I mean, I feel like Chris Paul has proven more in his given sport than Fessy has done in his. Like, Fessy is, for those who don't know, a competitor who used to be like a NFL or almost made the NFL, like a legit athlete. Yeah. And he carries himself like he's one of the best people to do this TV show. And he's like literally never won anything. And it's really annoying. He is very annoying.
Yeah, and then on top of it, he wears weird turtlenecks with extremely tight pants, and it makes you feel uncomfortable when he crosses his legs. It's all sorts of bad.
So he's the dude in high school who was like super popular and now is riding his popularity, even though he's like deep into his 30s and like still talking about what he did like on that one Saturday 15 years ago.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
He will never let you forget that he played Division I college football and almost made it to the NFL.
Yes, he's that guy. And everyone on the show can see through his bullshit. They're all like, this guy's a fucking douche. So they all know it. The viewer knows that he's the only one he's just so not self-aware. It's incredible.
Yeah, which is great too, because you can also tell he's the type of person that reads all the comments. So I'm just imagining him sitting in his apartment just stewing over the fact that everybody's making absolute fun of him and just roasting him.
Oh yeah.
All right, Brandon, now we can get to basketball. Now we can get to something you know about.
No, I appreciated the primer on actually, you know what reminds me, about a year ago, I was listening to the No Dunks podcast, previously the starters, Skeets, Taz, Trey, and Lee Ellis, and they were talking about this little show called Survivor, which I had heard of, and I had never watched it before, and they started this segment talking about it like every week, and that's what got me and Cassie into watching Survivor. And since that time, I mean, a pandemic happened, we have watched every single episode of all 40 seasons of Survivor, which is a lot of television, I gotta tell you. And so, hey, maybe We Like the Blazers will be the No Dunks for somebody else for, what's it called, the challenge?
The challenge, yep.
You never know.
There's been a few people from Survivor on the challenge, by the way. So you would I can't think of them off the top of my head, but if you've watched them all recently, if I could, you could probably be like, oh, I remember that person.
Interesting. Yeah. I wonder who they are. Okay, maybe I'll have to scope it out.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you on Twitter.
Okay, good stuff. Okay, let's talk about basketball. There was a game yesterday, guys. The Blazers, they beat the Nuggets 123-109. They take a 1-0 series lead in the first round of the playoffs. I have a lot of thoughts about this. I am pretty excited about it, but let's just start with before we dig into specifics, just give me what's kind of your summary / takeaway / the hit or the feeling that you are left with after having watched that game. Let's start with Ryan. What's your kind of summary / takeaway from that game?
Well, we obviously need to fire Stotts because he screwed up timeouts, right?
100%.
That's what, no.
I actually do want to talk about that timeout thing, but yeah.
But no, it was a promising start. It's kind of one of those things where the Blazers, the narrative changed leading up to the game. They went from obviously being an underdog just because of their seed to now to being favored. I mean, ESPN had that, their famous 50-50, 9-9 split with all their analysts between who was picking Blazers, and then final money ended up coming in, putting Blazers as the Vegas favorite. So in that regard, while I'm thrilled that they were able to go in there on the road and steal game one or take game one, at this point in time, I'm more along the lines of that it's expected. And so they did what was expected, and the game plan that I had built up in my head that I wanted to see is exactly what they pulled off. So there's not a lot of shock and surprise. I'm just kind of all right, great. The plan is working.
Well, let's do this. I'm doing this kind of on the fly before I give it to Evan to answer the same question. If you had an excitement-o-meter and it went from 0 to 100, where would you fall on the excitement-o-meter after that first game? Again, 0 being not excited, not encouraged, and 100 being oh my God, I can't believe it. Where would you fall on that scale?
Give me a mid to low 70s.
Okay. Hey, that's actually pretty good. That's that's a passing grade.
Yeah. Because again, it's the first round. You're expected to win, and it's kind of like I do agree with this is a year to show that you can do more than just win a game in the first round of the playoffs. So I'm not going to get over my skis per se by winning a game in the first round of the playoffs.
I think that's fair. Okay, Evan, to you, what's your takeaway, things that stuck out to you from this game, / where would you be on that 0 to 100 excite-o-meter after game one?
Yeah, I mean, so similar to Ryan, I honestly am not shocked by the result of last night. The week leading up, it's nice that we had a full week before the playoffs started, so able to consume so much NBA stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Just looking, it just fell perfectly for us in regards to, unfortunately, Jamal Murray's hurt. So because of injuries, when you look on paper, the matchups, it's they just don't have guards that can stop our 3 guards. And I know we'll get into it, but our 3 guards didn't even play that well, and we still handled them. It's just an ideal matchup. So I predicted Blazers in 6, but after last night, I wouldn't be shocked if it was Blazers in 5. If we continue, the one thing, and I know we're going to get into it, the one thing that makes me nervous is how open the players and everyone were last night to full on say our game plan. This is exactly what we're trying to do, and we did it last night. I mean, obviously Denver and their coaching staff is going to be able to figure that out without us explicitly saying it. But it was, after game one, just so openly coming out and saying, this is what we're going to do. This is what we want to do. We did it. Obviously we can expect to see adjustments made by Denver. But in regards to the excite-o-meter, it was a fun fucking game. I would say in the 80s. Again, but I wasn't shocked by the result. I wasn't shocked by the result, but also as Blazer fans, we know that we can't just expect them to win games that they should win, which is frustrating.
Yeah.
But the last few weeks of the season, I mean, maybe that's changing. I don't know.
That's fair. Yeah. I kind of agree with both of you, but also I'm just gonna put like a Brandon veneer on it, and I'm just gonna say that I'm encouraged by this. Honestly, they didn't play perfectly, right? There's room to get better. And Evan, to your point, Dame and CJ and particularly Powell didn't have great games, and despite that, despite being at elevation, and by the way, there's a whole side discussion about how long it takes for your body to actually acclimate to being...
I hate that narrative. Stop. Oh my gosh.
Every
year somebody plays in Denver, they act like it's the first time we've ever heard about altitude being a thing.
Well, the data does show that being at altitude gives you a disproportionately larger home court advantage. It's not super, super strong, but it's there. It's noticeable. But the point is, despite the Blazers not playing perfectly, they still won on the road by double digits. It's a long series. I think it's a good start. And I think I do want to dig into what you said, Evan, about the fact that everyone was so open about what the plan was on the Blazers end, which was what exactly?
Yeah, so the plan was to, and I agree with it totally, is to not double Jokic.
Yep.
And make Jokic beat you. So, I mean, I looked at some stats in regards to that. When Murray went down, the final 23 games of the season, minus the last game of the season where he played them, where they benched their guys, either Jokic or Michael Porter Jr. was the leading scorer for the Nuggets. No one else for 23 straight games. So, that you need to stop those two dudes. And I totally agree with what Nurkic said in regards to, we don't want to double him because he's best when he gets other people involved and passes the ball. And the Blazers are going to score 115 to 120 a game. Between Jokic and Porter, they're not going to average 60 apiece. Let them score. Don't let him pass the ball out of the post or at the top of the key and get other guys involved and get them confident. Just don't do that. Let him score. It's fine. I mean, put up resistance, but don't be discouraged if he scores 40 points in a game.
Right. And so, let me. So I think, Ryan, you're muted if you didn't know.
Yeah, see, little light, that tells you.
It did tell me, actually. Really quick, my excite-o-meter, I'm going to go with 84, year I was born. Also, again, there's room for improvement. It wasn't perfect. They still won by double digits. And also, I had my heart told me the Blazers would win in 5. And so ultimately I said, okay, I'm just going to pick Blazers in 5. And after this first game, Blazers in 5 looks like it is a possibility, not necessarily like it's gonna happen or whatever, but it looks like it's possible.
I have money on that because the odds were just so fantastic. I was looking at the Oregon Lottery scoreboard app yesterday at noon, and I think it was plus plus 750 or plus 850 for Blazers in 5. So I'm like, sure, that can get a few shekels.
I wait a minute. Okay, you got to help me here. Like, I don't understand gambling. What does that mean? The plus? Like, if you put down, like, what does it mean? Just explain it to me like I'm 5 because I am.
On the plus odds for that, so it's like in this case, I hate when people like speak in the hundreds or whatnot, but say I put $1 down on the Blazers to win in 5,
okay.
that plus 750 would basically mean I'm winning $7.50.
That's really good odds. Oh, but they have to win by exactly 5. It couldn't be in 6 or a sweep. It'd have to be in 5 games.
Yes, okay, that would be that's betting on the 5. But there is I did lay another bet for just Blazers straight out to win the series. But at that point in time, they were favored for that. So and I think it was I got it at minus 135, which in that case that would be like you have to bet $1.35 to win $1.
Okay. Hey, your Blazers in 5 thing is actually looking pretty good. I mean, this is about how it would look if they do win in 5 games. I wanted to get to Evan's point, though, pick at this a little bit more about how everybody knows the plan is, which is to limit Jokic. Jokic only had 1 assist, which is his playoff low. That's not going to happen again, right? He's going to get more than 1 assist in every other game, like almost guaranteed. Here's my question, and this is to anybody really, and I don't know what the answer is. If you're Denver and you know that the Blazers want to limit Jokic's passing, how could they counter this? I mean, they can't magically infuse their players with extra talent juice, right? Which would be the point is that Jokic doesn't have a whole lot of targets to pass to is kind of the problem, right? So if you're Denver and you know exactly what Portland wants to do, then how would you try to crack that?
Well, if they knew what Denver wanted to do going into game 1, everybody on the planet knew that was the game plan of basically don't double Jokic, and
I think you and I actually both said that on Twitter at various times too. Before.
Yeah. Other than us and every other media member. So if Denver was somehow shocked and surprised that the Blazers came out and played that way, and that's how they played Jokic, that's fully on Malone for being a dipshit.
Well, that's the thing though. Is like
Oh, yeah. That was such a dick move.
A reporter called him Mike in the post game, and he corrected the reporter, saying it's actually Michael. It's like
it was mid-game. It was during the game.
It was mid-game. See, on the one hand, I'm fine with people requesting to be called by whatever name. On the other hand, like just chill out, Like I don't know, whatever. Anyway, so but like that's the thing, love. Like how I personally, maybe I'm just not creative enough. I can't think of what I would tell Denver to do differently because I don't know what else they could do, right? Like
easiest thing that'll probably happen is you're going to see like point forward Jokic. He's him to start passing more. You're going to see a lot more possessions where he's bringing the ball up the court. I don't know.
Here's the thing. Like who is he going to pass to? Like who is it that like so severely underperformed their talent level? Like Michael Porter Jr. went off, Jokic went off, Aaron Gordon had 16 and 8, and nobody else on Denver did that much. But guess what? That's because Denver doesn't really have anybody else. With Jamal Murray hurt, Will Barton's not playing. Like I don't know. Like. Yeah, Evan.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's going back to my point. The Blazers, and because defensively the Nuggets they've improved, but they're still not good. The Blazers are gonna score 115 to 120 points per game. So if you just do the math, like who is gonna score these points for these Nuggets? Like Jokic could average 40, and Michael Porter Jr. could average 25. Cool. You still need 60 points to win the game, and who's gonna do that for you? They only had 4 dudes in double figures, and I forget how many guys they played, and Morris, I think, had exactly 10. And then the Blazers had 6 of the 8 guys that played had double digits, and Rocco was at 8 points. He was 2 points away from double digits. But, I just don't see how they can score enough points to beat us in this series.
Denver went 9 deep last night. The guy who played the fewest minutes was Millsap with 15.
Millsap did not look good. I thought that maybe playoff Millsap was going to be kind of a thing, and he looked as old as he actually is.
We should want them to play Millsap because that is a dude that Melo can actually guard.
Oh yeah,
that's someone that because I worry about Melo having to guard Michael Porter Jr. or Aaron Gordon, but if Millsap's on the floor, Melo can guard him. That's fine. That's great. That's great for us.
And then fun nugget. I mean, Millsap was the only one with a positive plus minus at a whopping +1 for Denver,
which is shocking because it was a close game throughout. That's until the third quarter. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well let me tick through a couple stats and just tell me if anything jumps out. Just you have to do it for the good of the order. Dame had 34 and 13 dimes. CJ went for 21, 6 and 3. Nurkic was 16, 12 and 5. Melo obviously had that insane first half and had 18 points on the game. And Simons had 14 points on 5 of 6 shooting. As we talked about a little bit before, Powell and even Robert Covington didn't have their best games, and neither did Cantor. Okay, yeah, no, let's talk about that.
Well, for one, the fun stat that jumped out at me is that Dame accounted for, with his scoring and his assist, accounted for, I believe, 57% of Portland's overall total score.
Oh yeah.
So he accounted for over half the points. The other thing, Rocco.
Yeah.
Go
with
ahead.
Dame, real quick, with Dame, the part that's jumped out to me when I was looking at the box score, only 2 turnovers. So he's shooting and passing the ball, and he only turned the ball over twice. The Blazers as a team had we had 6 turnovers. We had 6 turnovers.
Yeah, that's actually
crazy.
That's huge considering, like you just said, he was the primary ball handler. He played 40 minutes. He was getting pressured a lot by Facundo Campazzo. And actually, let's talk about that. Because I
got one more thing real quick.
Yeah,
you got to apologize to Robert Covington. The man had the second highest plus minus out of anyone on the Blazers team. So
are we really doing the individual plus minus thing though?
I mean, I think it kind of stands out. It's him and Dame above 20. And again, it's Robert Covington is the new and improved Al Farouq Aminu in that you actually trust him to shoot and possibly dribble the ball, but he does a lot of things that don't show up in a box score. So yeah, I do believe that, that plus 21 that he was for the game is a big part of why they won.
I'm not disagreeing. I would just suggest that maybe part of that individual plus minus were the people that Robert Covington was playing with at the time, right? And he had a good game. I'm not saying that he was bad or anything.
If that's the case, then Norman Powell would have registered better than a -5.
Look at how the Blazers, how they worked their rotations and who Powell was playing with. And also Powell didn't have the best game, right? Probably his worst game as a Blazer, which again,
I think it was.
Yeah, which is part of the reason I feel pretty good. He's going to play better next game. There's almost no doubt about it.
Norm, Dame, and CJ went a combined 21 for 56, which is 38%. And we won by 14 points.
Yeah.
What we won by?
Yep.
Yeah. 38%. Those three went 38%, and we still won by 14. That's not good for Denver. Not good at all. Because I can't imagine Norm going 3 for 11 next game. I just can't.
Yeah.
Right. And I agree with you. I don't think it can be overstated that this is not the Blazers clicking on all cylinders and winning by 14. This is the Blazers playing a flawed game and winning by 14. So, series is far from over and anything could happen. But I did want to talk about, let's talk about Facu's defense on Dame.
Can we just call him Campazzo? If we're going first name, I'm gonna F that thing up so many times.
Yeah, I call him Campazzo too, because same thing. I'll fuck it up. I didn't know about him until a week ago, and he's someone after the series I will hopefully never have to hear from again, and I will not care about. So
you don't like 29-year-old rookies from Europe? Come on, man.
Who look like they haven't slept in a week? The dude's got gigantic bags under his eyes. It looks like he hasn't slept.
He just needs a little green stick. You just get that and just dab it on. It helps with the bags under the eyes, right? Shout out to Queer Eye for that tip. Here's the thing, though. You may not like him, and by the way, I like calling him Faco. That's fine. Whatever. But Campazzo. So for people who don't know, he is an older rookie, and he's very short, right? He's 5'10". 5'10".
Yes, he is my height.
He is Ryan's height, and he plays very intense defense, which look, when you're that short, you have to play that intensive defense. And I would say that he did annoy Dame. He did his job really well, right? He got Damian Lillard frustrated at times. But here's the thing is that Damian Lillard, being a little older and wiser, he's seen this before, and he was able to take advantage. I watched all of Dame's 13 assists, and by my count, 10 of those 13 came as a result of Dame being pressured. So for as much as people want to, and sometimes rightfully, criticize Terry Stotts for his, lack of creativity on offense. The Blazers now do have enough talent and enough savvy, and they're putting their guys in a good enough position so that when that happens, Dame is able to respond. So I don't know if either of you two have anything specifically on like Campazzo's defense on Dame and how Dame responded, but I just thought it was noteworthy because that's going to continue.
Yeah, I think for me, the tough part for Campazzo, the thing that sucks for you, bro, is that Damian Lillard's a star and he's going to get star calls. So that's going to be huge. But Dame was 9 for 9 from the free throw line. I'm shocked he didn't get more free throws. Campazzo's going to have a hard time with that. He's going to get star calls, and that's going to really suck for him. Sorry, bro.
The complaining from Dame came really early and was effective.
Well, especially the one where he completely cherry picked it and he was too busy complaining. They got a steal and he's like, oh shit, ball. Yay.
Oh, that was funny. That was a funny moment.
That was funny.
Yeah, I know Denver was pissed at that, and he's just standing under the basket. It's like, oh, whatever.
Unlike when Nurk did it and just gave up on a play and decided to not chase a ball that just went through his hands. And God.
May I say one thing about Nurk real quick that I was really worried about? So in the first half, and I tweeted out yesterday, I did not like his body language at all. I thought that he was complaining a lot. I didn't think that he was kind of sloppy with the ball, putting in kind of a piss poor effort. The thing I worry with Nurk in this series, just real quick, is there's only a handful of matchups in the league where the other center is head and shoulders, no doubt, better than Nurkic, and Jokic is one of those guys. And I just really hope, and Nurkic is a pretty prideful dude. I just hope that we can be like, hey man, he's better than you. Don't get in your head about it. You can still impact the game like he did last. And I think in the second half, it totally changed. His body language and attitude totally changed. But I just hope someone's just like, hey man, don't get in your head. Jokic is better than you. You have to come to grips with that, and just doesn't mean that you can't give great effort and affect this game in a really positive way.
I actually thought to that point that Nurk's comments before the series about how he thought Jokic was the MVP, I thought was a good reflection of him kind of, acknowledging that, this little brother syndrome that maybe he's been holding on to since he was traded from Denver, that he's letting go of that a little bit. And yeah, I agree. He didn't look super great in that first half, but he had a really, really impactful game, particularly his passing, right? That's I don't think that that's a fluke. Somebody called out in the Twitter questions, and we can hit on it later, about sustainability, about what things from this game we think are going to continue. Do either of you disagree that Nurkic's passing is going to continue to be important in this series? Because I think that it will be.
No, it's been important for the Blazers all year. That was one of our biggest things about the offense being so stagnant when he was out, is that Cantor, no matter how much he wants to come up and set those early screens, he's not the type of offensive player that he's going to be a pivot point like Nurk is. And Nurk, he's not a passer on the level of Jokic, but he still can operate and hit Dame on a beautiful, spinning cut pass at one point in the game. His court vision is great. So yeah, no, it's his passing is always important to this team.
I also, to Evan's point about people keeping Nurk pumped up, I also hope, and I think Nurk knows this too, that the fact that Jokic went off, that's not only is that okay, that's actually a good thing, right? I have something in here. Where did it go? Because it's a good segue.
His quote.
Yeah, okay, here it is. Yeah. In the post game, Nurkic says, quote, when he scores, he being Jokic, when he scores, I think we have a better chance. The fact that he isn't involving all of his teammates, he gets more dangerous when he's in and out. I think we feel more comfortable when he scores 30 or 40 and try not to lock in all the other guys to not have a big game. That's what Nurkic said about him guarding Jokic and Jokic going off. And to Nurkic's point, just kind of a wonky stat, but Jokic gets 1.1 points per possession when he shoots the ball, and he gets 1.3 points per possession when he passes the ball. So the Blazers, again, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Everybody and their mother knew the Blazers wanted to limit Jokic's passing. But to Evan's point about Nurkic's attitude, I think it is encouraging that Nurk isn't I failed to contain him or whatever. He's like, no, we wanted to let him eat, because that's how the team is going to be successful. So that's, I don't know, that's encouraging for me anyway.
Well, yeah, and then the other thing too is if Jokic is passing, that means he's resting. He's not actively involved in the offense. He's catching his breath. And Dave Deckard over at Blazers Edge read a great article before the series started, and he said one of the keys for containing Jokic is footsteps. The more steps you can make him take, the more tired he will become, the less effective his shot will be. And we saw that at the tail end when he started front shots and leaving him short. He was getting tired. So if he's not passing and he's having to do all that work banging down in the post to get those scores, even to get 34 points, that's going to be beneficial, because then you're possibly taking steam out of your star's legs for a close late game situation.
Yeah. No, for sure. Let's see what else. There's a lot, man. There's a lot to get into about this game. What about this kind of, Denver didn't shoot particularly well from deep, right? They shot 30% from three. They put up about as many shots as the Blazers did, but the Blazers hit 47% of those. So I would imagine Denver may not shoot only 30%. Maybe Portland won't shoot 47%. But again, we were talking about, especially Dame and Norman Powell from deep have room for improvement. And I just don't think Denver has the shooters to keep up, right? Michael Porter Jr. went 1 for 10. He might do better next game, but I don't know. If I'm a Denver fan, am I really looking at anybody? Am I leaning on Austin Rivers to go off? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Denver is without their main guards and without Will Barton, you've taken away, outside of Jokic, you've taken away their most consistent three-point shooters. So Will Barton is figured to come back before the series started. Mike Malone had stated that Will Barton had returned to full contact practice, and he will be playing in this series. It was up in the air on if we'd see him in game 1. That may be an adjustment that we see from Malone in game 2, but
what if Will Barton's just secretly a double agent for the Blazers,
No, he's still pissed at us. He still holds that burning ember. Damn it. Yeah. We traded him and gave him an absolutely fantastic career in Denver. How dare we, us bastards?
I think we had one more thing in here. I think, Ryan, you'd put in about the fast start.
And that's just one of the big things to watch out for. We saw it in yesterday's game. They both jumped out. I think it was, in the high 30s for both teams. And Denver and Portland are literally the top 2 teams in the league for first quarter scoring. And so that's going to be something to watch out for. Especially with how we've seen that the Blazers, if they fall behind early, they sometimes lose steam. That's a trend we hope doesn't return, because it seemed to have gotten corrected by the end of the season. But if Portland's shot is off and Denver just gets hot, it's a danger to dig an early hole. Yeah, Evan?
Yeah, and for me, one of the interesting stats before we move on from the stats, the thing that really jumped out at me that kind of ties in with that was just the ball movement. Watching it without looking at the stat box, I felt like the ball movement was way more crisp and more on point. And then after the game, looking up and seeing that the Blazers had 29 assists, which is incredible considering that we are dead last in the league in the regular season at 20, last in the league at 21 assists per game. So to see it jump up to 29%, and it's only one game in the playoffs, but it's very encouraging to see them move the ball like that.
Yeah, that's a 30-year shots overall that are assisted, and that's fantastic.
Exactly. And then to your point about the first quarter, the other thing that stood out, and I think we're going to touch on a part of this a little bit later, but 38 points in the third quarter, which is, I know it's a funny, cute thing to joke about on Twitter, oh God, here comes the third quarter for the Blazers. This is when we really stink. But 38 third quarter points, that's what got us the separation from Denver. So whatever adjustments were made at halftime and whatever they were saying to each other, Stotts was coaching them up, it obviously really worked. I was really pumped about that.
Yeah, and to your point too about the assists and the sustainability of it. When you watch Dame's assists, they were not just most of them were in very direct response to the way they were defending Dame. And if you defend Dame super close, what's going to happen? Other people are going to be open, right? And he has the vision to pull that off. And also Nurkic's assists, right? There was one in particular it was at near the end of the fourth quarter where Nurkic had it at the elbow and Melo cut inside, and Nurkic had a tenth of a second to pull off this bounce pass between Aaron Gordon and Jokic, and he pulled it off. Stuff like that. It's obviously we know that we've talked about it. Nurkic's passing is important. So all this is just to say say, like they may not get 29 assists next game, but the way that they were doing it was in response to how they were being guarded, and it just, I don't know, it made sense to me.
Another way to it's important too. I mean, like, to see that 29 assists and have that account for 30% of your shots basically are assisted. I always try to look at a Blazer game and thinking about things in hockey assists, because look at the guys that are getting past the ball. Like, if Dame is passing CJ the ball, he may take a dribble, a little sidestep, a little Euro step, and score. It doesn't mean that that's not an assist in the true sense of the word, but that's ball movement and an assisted shot. So when you have a team that has this many shot creators, that's going to diminish your overall assist numbers. But if you look at just the ball movement in general, you have to kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's actually funny that there are some folks who really point at the Blazers' lack of assists and saying, oh, if only they had a different coach that could get them passing more. The counter to that, which came...
I haven't seen Stotts pass the ball once this year, so I obviously he's got to go.
And it's funny because Stotts is actually an NBA player, so you'd think he'd be able to pass from the bench. But a counter to that is that the Blazers... first of all, have one of the most potent offenses in the NBA and even in NBA history. But the second thing is that there is no direct correlation between number of assists and how good your offense is. However, there is a direct correlation between how many turnovers you commit and how dragged down your offense gets. And guess what? There's also a correlation between the number of passes you make and the number of turnovers you commit. So when you have elite ball handlers, elite scorers like a Dame, like a CJ, at times like Norman Powell, my cats are fighting in the background, when you have people who are able to generate offense without the risk of turning the ball over, that's a good thing, right? And I'm not saying that's the end-all, be-all. I'm not saying that the Blazers shouldn't look to pass more. I'm just saying when we're thinking about this stuff, it's important to put it into full context. And there are some reasons why you may not want to pass the ball more because you may turn the ball over, right? Was there anything...
There's a reason the Blazers ranked dead last in assists and first in fewest turnovers.
Exactly.
Yeah. The system is set up to play to the strengths of our players, and the strengths of our players in Dame and CJ, they're really good at ISO scoring. And like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like, I understand that there's just a subset of people who just like to be angry just to be angry, and they need to find stats to be angry about. And the assist is one of those. And it's like, all right, well, we've got like a top 5 offense. So, offense is not the issue for this team. It hasn't been the issue for this team this year.
And I mean, this is not a podcast about Coach Stotts, because I'm sure that we'll get to that at some point during the offseason or whatever. But for the record, I think there are things about Terry Stotts' coaching that could be better, right? Like, I think that there are coaches who are better than Terry Stotts, right? Doesn't mean he's the best coach in the world. He's also not the worst coach in the world, right? So there's some give and take there. And I think that you're right. Like, it's important just to look at it in the full context. Was there anything else you wanted to get to that you all think either is sustainable, that you expect to see again, that you think can continue, before we get into some of the kind of the unsustainable stuff?
Not really, because I disagree with half of what you got on the unsustainable list. So
great, let's go. Okay, so I think it's unsustainable that Jokic can be limited that much in his passing. We said before, 1 assist for him, it was a career playoff low. And the other thing, I pulled this little thing out from Twitter. According to ESPN Stats and Info, the Nuggets shot just 1 for 10 on passes from Jokic. That means that he had 10 potential assists that only generated 1 actual assist. I know that we just got done talking about how Denver doesn't have a ton of options for him to pass to, but that's not going to happen again, right? Like, Denver's not going to shoot 10% off of passes from Jokic. I don't think that any of us think that's going to continue, right?
I do.
Okay.
I don't, because we just talked about it. We don't trust their shooters. That's why, they do not have a reputation as being sustained shooters. And there are guys on this team that you want to be shooting the ball. If he's passing the ball to Campazzo, if he's passing the ball to Aaron Gordon on the perimeter, those are guys that you kind of want taking the shot. And you're going to be like, okay, well, if we lose by those guys hitting, but the numbers say they're more than likely not.
Yeah, and like we talked about earlier, the Denver Nuggets can't force the Blazers to double team Jokic. And during the season, when teams double team him, he's able to pass out of it so quickly and hit someone open. I haven't gone back and rewatched the game, but I would assume that 1 for 10, those 9 shots that were missed were probably contested because we're not doubling him, right? So I don't think that strategy changes. I mean, the Nuggets can't force us to double him. They just can't. So do I think that more players, that they'll hit more than 1 shot out of a pass out from Jokic? Sure. I think that the Nuggets will also want to do that more. I think that they're going to try to change the strategy to try to get other guys involved so the burden doesn't all fall on Jokic. But if we continue not to double them, those looks that earlier in the season were wide open looks are going to be contested looks. And if they continue to be contested looks, again, not 10%, but I still think it could be a low percentage.
And one of the beautiful things too is that if we're not doubling Jokic in the post, that means that when Jokic is passing out of the post or passing to a player, and we saw it a couple times last night where Portland can send a trap or send a blitz, the rest of Denver's players are nowhere near as good of passers as Jokic. So they're not getting the ball back to him to take advantage of that blitz or that trap. So without doubling him, that opens up so many defensive opportunities, and we saw a lot of them on display last night.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I also don't think the strategy changes. I think, though, and this is where maybe I want to give the Blazers coaching staff and the Blazers players some credit, that the Blazers were extremely disciplined about not doubling Jokic, even when he started going off, right? And so I think it is important that if he were to go off even more, or if things were to look a little bit differently, that the Blazers don't panic and don't try to shift too far from their strategy, which clearly is working. I mean, I also agree with Evan. I don't think the 1 for 10 is going to sustain. Again, Michael Porter Jr. went 1 for 10 from deep, for example. He's going to hit more than that. And I didn't have a chance to look at where those 10 potential assists went. In fact, to be completely honest, I don't know how I would find that, because if you go to stats.nba.com, it's pretty cool. You can see a video clip of like every point, every rebound, every assist, but I don't know if there's a way to see potential assists, right? Like, unless you're rewatching the entire game.
Yeah, did you see that same stat that you mentioned, Jokic, the 1 for 10 with Dame? Did you see what that was?
No.
It was 13 of 15 pass outs were assists for Dame. So wow. 15 times pass out, because I read the ESPN story. I had an ESPN story. 13 of 15.
That's amazing. And again, that may not continue. Like, basically, there's an alternate universe in which Jokic actually had 5 assists and Dame actually only had 8, and the score is closer, right? Like, I mean, butterfly effect, like, who knows what would have happened, but I'm just saying, like, that's not completely unreasonable. But yeah, the strategy was sound.
We had a game plan. They executed it. The players trusted the coaches. Like you mentioned, I love your point about they didn't overreact when Nurk started to go off. They stayed the course. They had a game plan. They executed it. The players trusted the coaches, and it resulted in a W. And
by the way, like, I keep thinking about my friend Terry Stotts, the coaching staff being able to get the players to buy into something, even when it looks like in some respects it's not working. That actually is the sign of a strong coach. That is something about coaching, which it may be hard to quantify, but keeping people interested and engaged, buying into whatever it is you're telling them, even when it doesn't look like parts of it are working, that actually is a really important part of coaching, and Terry Stotts is very good at that. Here's something else I don't think is particularly sustainable. I don't have the stats in front of you, and maybe one of you can give it to me. Carmelo Anthony's first half, right? Like, that was a lot of fun to see. Like, it was pretty awesome. Like, I appreciated Denver booing him because it seemed like he kind of enjoyed that. Unfortunately, we saw the other end of that in the second half, where he took, several shots in a row that were maybe less than advisable, but it's because he was
Melo drank his own Kool-Aid for the second half.
Yeah, I like to say, in the first half, I busted out my Melo apology form and filled it out, and then in the second half, I maybe set it aside a little bit. But
they dropped him off at my door. Thanks, by the way. I got him in the mail. I lit them all on fire. Don't worry.
I've never had to apologize for Melo, by the way. I've always loved Melo.
Good for you, Evan.
Evan,
I get frustrated with him like everyone else, but
Evan, if you're not aware, I have been a Melo hater for a very long time, but I have learned also, and I am willing to readdress this once the season has come to a close and the playoffs are over. I've learned that the more I slander Melo during a game, the Melo basically offers his own personal fuck you to me and plays better. So at this point, my superstitious side says I can't stop. I can't stop slandering the man. It's for the benefit of everyone.
No, and I understand the criticism of Melo for sure. Defensively, it's tough to keep him out on the floor when the matchup is against him and he takes bad shots. For me, just holistically, I think it's so cool that we get to root for a guy like Melo. You know, the Blazers never get dudes in free agency or trade kind of that caliber. Even if he's in the twilight of his career, that's fine. Like, I just think we're going to look back and be like, man, that was really fucking fun rooting for that guy. And how happy he was. Like, the Blazers account the other day posted that video at practice, and I tweeted, I'm like, man, that guy just loves basketball. And it's so much fun that we get to root for him. Maybe this is his last stop. Maybe it's not. I just love the fact that the Blazers asked him to, take a chance on us, and that he embraced that. So I think it's fun.
Yeah, I do maintain catch and shoot Melo is the best Melo. And we saw a lot of catch and shoot Melo last night. And that is why I feel as though he was as productive and helpful as he was.
Yeah. And look, I mean, it's kind of you could say the same thing about Anthony Simons, maybe even more so, because he only missed one of his 6 shots, right? Like, Simons is not going to go 4 for 5 from deep every game. But yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't expect that stuff to continue necessarily. Like, it wouldn't shock me if Melo went 4 for 12 or Ant, went 2 for 6. Like, that's not going to shock me if that happens in game 2.
Yeah.
So one of my unsustainable things that ties into that, I think you're absolutely right. I think would be foolish to think that could happen, consistently over the entire series. Conversely, something that I don't think is unsustainable that is beneficial to Portland is, again, Dame, Norm, and CJ shooting 38% from the field. Right. So that's a good, like, an unsustainable thing that's good for us.
That's exactly it. It's like, if it were that like every Blazers player kind of popped off, I'd be a little bit more concerned, right? I mean, Denver technically shot better than the Blazers in this game overall, right? Like, Denver shot 50%, the Blazers shot 47%. Part of that is the shot selection and Blazers making a ton of threes, but part of that is that, yeah, like you just said, like, maybe Simons doesn't pop off, maybe Melo doesn't pop off, but Dame could, Norman will definitely play better. Yeah. So the other thing, it seemed like Denver got like every offensive rebound for like a 20-minute stretch. I was
it's because they did.
Well, I was trying to, maybe you guys can help me out. Like, I was trying to figure out why that was happening. Was it like was it just the ball was bouncing weird? Were people just like losing track of people to box out? Like, I couldn't figure out why that was happening, but it was super, super annoying.
You were seeing a lot of guys from Denver fly in from the perimeter and catching rebounds. I mean, in the event, the Blazers weren't boxing out, but there was a lot of rebounds that I saw Denver grab where the Blazers didn't necessarily have anyone to box out when the ball went up. And Brian Freeman from Blazers, formerly a Blazers Edge. I saw him have a good
professional basketball player, Brian Freeman.
Yeah, yes. That too. I saw somebody saying something about boxing out, and I saw him reply with the fun news is that when everybody boxes out, nobody gets the rebound, basically. And it basically talking about like players and personal stats. Like, if you're gonna have a big guy that cares to box out, he's boxing out for his teammates to get a rebound. So I'm not expecting Dame and CJ to start boxing guys out.
Steven Adams helping out his colleague Russell Westbrook in OKC.
Literally going to say Steven Adams. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Robin Lopez was really good at that too. Robin Lopez, when he was on the Blazers, I haven't followed as much lately, but he would create so much space it was just, and then the ball would just fall and someone would just grab it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there's one more thing I had in this list, and Ryan, in your notes, you say this was not a thing, but Portland's free throw advantage. Explain to me why Portland shooting 19 free throws to Denver's 8 was not a thing. Do my eyes deceive me? Am I getting the numbers mixed up? Have I forgotten how to count to 20? Help me out here.
No, you're right on the numbers thing. I just think that the refs last night were absolute trash, and so the foul calls that were called on both ends of the court ended up being egregious ones that they could not blow the whistle for. But I feel as though we saw a lot more contact on both ends of the court, and so I mean I don't think that the free throw advantage last night was, I don't know, actually a thing. Call me an idiot for it. It's a weird thought, but the refs were trash last night in my mind, so.
That's fine.
I tossed the baby out with the bathwater on that one.
The other thought I had, I don't know if, Evan, if you have an opinion on this, but the other thought I had was that's just part of the Blazers' style of play. Particularly, Damian Lillard is very good. How do I put this? He is good at, generating opportunities for people to foul him, right? Through the way in which he can exaggerate contact, and frankly, through him not being afraid to drive. And so maybe some of that disparity was simply that was how the Blazers played, right? But I guess I don't expect the Blazers to shoot more than twice as many free throws as Denver every single game. I just don't think that's going to continue.
Dame has also never been fouled in the act of shooting. Only on the floor. Only. Ever.
Yeah. And Dame is really good at curling on the top of the 3-point line from that pick that's set and then rising up before he even gets all the way through the pick. And I mean, in the regular season, he got that call a lot. Obviously, didn't get it much last night. But I think, trying to handicap what the refs are going to do from game to game, especially in the playoffs, you just can't. Who knows? From game, you have no idea from game to game what their motive is and what they're officiating. It's the one thing I do think, like I mentioned earlier, Dame will get Campazzo in foul trouble because Dame is a star and Campazzo is not.
And Campazzo thinks he knows Dame well enough to be able to, because one of his things is when he was over in Europe, and this was well before the playoff series came out, old article asking about like his idols and whatnot and how he got ready to make the jump over to the NBA. And he referenced what we hear a lot of guys say is that he plays a lot of 2K. And one of the players that he tried to model his game after and that he would always play as was Damian Lillard. So he knows digital Dame well.
Campazzo trying to be Dame is like me taking an Evan M print and then making a bad copy of it and then sketching over it and then putting it through a fax machine and then crumpling it. And I'm not trying to dump on Campazzo.
People have done that. People have essentially done that.
We could have a whole segment about people.
My shit gets stolen all the time.
Stealing your shit. Yeah. Okay. So I want to be a little mindful of time. Was there anything else that kind of jumped out to you two about this game? Any parting thoughts? I don't know if you want to go into the Twitter questions. I don't know if you want to do like predictions for the next game or predictions for the series, or how do you want to land this aeroplane?
We can after this little bit we can go into the Twitter questions. The only other little random nugget that I wanted to point out.
Nugget, huh? That's quite the choice of word there.
Yeah, well, that was pun not intended, but it works. But Zach Collins I was right. I literally was sitting on the couch before the game started, and our buddy Eric turns to me and he's like, "So I think this is going to be a chippy series, and we'll probably see a fight. Any guess on who it is?" I think it might be Melo. I said, "No, Collins is going to fight somebody." I didn't figure it'd be Collins fighting the guy on Denver's bench and Jamal Murray.
That was.
I tweeted like an hour ago or a couple hours ago that on that clip where he's flipping off Jamal Murray, I tweeted, Zach Collins is the homie that walks up to you and hands you a roll of quarters and whispers in your ear, just in case, right before you go out to go party. The motherfucker is born and raised Las Vegas. Like, have you ever met anyone that was like born and raised in Las Vegas? Like, they're crazy. And that guy is crazy.
He literally looks like a physical amalgamation of, say the word Las Vegas, and Zach Collins in what he's wearing will pop out. Like, he literally looks and acts the part. Yeah, I agree.
I want to party with him so bad. There was one time in Portland.
Don't do it during season, though. We all saw that that 3-month hangover he had from his 21st birthday. I repeated that.
For sure. But there was one time at a bar on 23rd when I was partying. And he walked in with like a group of people and they got a table. And like, I thought to myself, like, he's not even close to 21 years old. And then like 15 minutes later, someone like came and whispered and he like had to leave. But yeah, I would have loved to take a shot with him. Oh, that would have been great.
Oh man, Zach Collins. It'd be fun to see him come back during the playoffs if the Blazers are so fortunate as to continue playing in the playoffs. Part of me really wants to see him play. Part of me just wants to see him heal. Another interesting discussion about what his offseason might look like. But
is he a free agent this offseason, or is he have one more year left on his rookie deal?
Restricted.
Yep.
Oh man, that's going to be a tough decision.
So he gets the 1 year prove it deal contract, unless Neil decides to give him that sweet Myers Leonard money.
Let's not go too far. We don't know if Neil's going to have a job this off. Like, I can wish.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
I did the the sweet Myers Leonard money. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Blazers do like a, hey, go ahead and take the security of a long-term deal at a term that works for the team, right? Like kind of a low per year but higher number of years thing. Like that wouldn't shock me.
Give me a 1-and-1. Give me a 1 year with a team option.
Well, we'll see. Different conversation for a different day. Any other thoughts about kind of the game or predictions for moving forward, or do we just want to get into these questions? I don't know.
I see we get in the questions
at this point. What's that?
I see we get in the questions because, like, my predictions for the series has not changed since before Game 1. It is exactly the same. So
very good. Yep.
Blazers in 6. I have it tattooed. Blazers in 6.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I guess you're kind of locked into that prediction till the end of time now, right?
Yeah.
All day, every day. Absolutely.
You're going to look silly when they sweep. I said, again, my heart told me Blazers in 5, and I, that may not happen, but it's looking pretty good, actually, so far. Okay.
Off to a good start.
Some Twitter questions. This one's from Triple Dog at Eric J. Also, he wanted to know how dope this podcast would be. The answer is super dope. There's really
hell yeah, dog.
No question about that. He also asked, and I don't really... so I don't have cable, so I can't answer this question. Which is the best Fred Meyer commercial? Kid inviting stranger in house. What is he talking about?
He's talking about the annoying Fred Meyer commercials that you see on every Blazer game. Now, Evan, I don't know if you get those on your NBA TV feed, but I want.
Luckily, I don't. I don't.
I want to murder the Fred Meyer marketing director because, well, for one, I can't even say Fred Meyer. I think it's Kroger or whatnot that owns them. For one, you notice that the name tags on all the characters in that little animated thing, they don't have the name of the store. Never do you see the name of the store, so that whatever part of the country you're in, they can just insert it for that.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's where you get like. Yeah,
yep.
So that's where you get like the Fred Meyer, the how low, and it's the little people dancing or whatnot. The other one that they had just started was it's like this family at a dinner table, and you see a person just walk by their kitchen window and like look in and just kind of like stare at the family. And then like a little kid gets up from the table and goes out and grabs the person by the hand and invites him in to sit at the dinner table.
Okay. That seems weird and unsafe.
It is. Yes. So
yeah. especially as we're exiting a fucking pandemic. Yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah, and it's weird too because like you can't tell if it's like a family or if it's a friends gathering. Like it's just this weird amalgamation of a table, and it's talking about like helping out your neighbors during a pandemic. But I'm like, this is horrible messaging. Like during a pandemic, it is not drag strangers off the street and invite them into your house. Also, like. Horrible fucking parenting. Why are you letting your kids just go out and talk to strangers who are creepily peering in your fucking window?
That is super weird.
Don't do that. Don't, kids out there listening, do not do that.
Yeah, so my vote is for the kid inviting stranger in house, but only because it leads you down such helpful PSA conversations with your family.
I have a vote, even though I use NBA League Pass, and I don't get to see the Fred Meyer commercials, unfortunately, but it sounds like it's fortunate. Any commercial. So I watched with Fat Man, who is here, right there. But I don't know if you can see him. He's just right there.
Oh, he's Fat Man.
Any commercial that has an animal, I vow to never buy their product or use their service, because he watches the games and he barks when he watches TV, and anytime an animal comes on TV, he loses his mind, and I get so frustrated. So. Years ago, there was a Les Schwab commercial years ago that had a golden retriever towards the middle of the commercial. And he got to the point where he could hear the music and see the very first opening seconds, and he would perk up because he knew the golden retriever was coming. Like
that motherfucker's back.
Yeah, every time. I wish you didn't do that, bud, but I love you, so it's fine.
My answer to this is going to be something where only the real ones will understand. What's on your list today? You'll find it at Fred Meyer. So like
You're going old school.
Yeah, bring back like the early 90s. And to our point about like the templatization of advertising, that was a Fred Meyer commercial for Fred Meyer. You knew because that song had the word Fred Meyer in it, right? So it's like, one easy stop and you're on your way.
If you want to go with burned in marketing, the one I will never forget, to go back to my Midwest roots, is the freaking Save Big Money at Menards.
Menards.
It's amazing.
It's a Minnesota thing.
My memory is at
You're
times,
from Minnesota?
Yes, my people hail from Minnesota.
My people hail. My memory is at times not the greatest, but at television advertising, I have like bubblegum advertisements. I have like from like when I was like 7. It's like, don't I have other better things for my brain to keep track of than this bullshit? Anyway.
Nope. Same as we will always know where Shane Company is located. There is no question on those directions whatsoever.
Oh my Lord. Okay. I'm going to give this next question to you, Ryan. Yeah.
Okay, so this one is crass, but the thing is when you so politely and kindly hopped on Twitter after the game last night to solicit these questions and comments, I am sitting within arm's reach of one Mr. Ryan Green, and I was like, hey, you should go come up with some sort of creative question or comment. Forgetting that if you challenge that man to do such a thing, he will do it in such a horrible nature. So he asked, which nipples are best, Canadian bacon, pepperoni, or invisible? And I'm not going to lie, that question went over my head for the first 45 seconds after I
literally
read it.
have no idea what that means.
My answer to that,
I would like to, and your guys' Dr. Better Halves will appreciate this. He is discussing the wrong body part. I believe he is referencing the areola and not the nipple itself. And I feel as though we cannot properly answer this question when he has worded it so horribly. So if he can come back with a more properly and medically correct question, we can address this on a future show. But until he does so, we cannot.
I still don't know if I would understand the question, but
I think that first of all,
it's an odd question.
I'll draw you a picture.
Please.
Evan, you and I should ask our better halves if there is a fellowship for areola studies. And second of all, I would say...
Isn't that the bedroom?
Oh, my God. I would say whatever it is that you have is just fine by me, right? Like, I feel like and there's a lot about the way that I look that I don't really like, that I've never liked, right? And over time, hopefully you just come to accept that this is the way that you are, and that's totally okay, right? So that's my answer. Whatever it is that you have is totally awesome. Let's go to this one, a serious question from Kyle Harris at khartos44.
Kyle?
What's up, Kyle? We actually did talk about this a little bit, but maybe just a quick your first thought that what, if anything, about the win was unsustainable?
I honestly, again, in a good way, that Dame, Norman, CJ shooting 38%. I think that they're going to perform better than that moving forward, which is a very good thing for the Blazers.
Yeah, I'm ditto.
I'm gonna go. Both of you being positive. Look at that. Me going negative. This is a weird spot to be in. I'm gonna say that Melo and Simons performing as well as they did is maybe a little bit unsustainable. I also don't think, as we talked about, that Jokic will only have 1 assist. That's just not going to happen again.
That won't happen. You're right, and that will not happen again.
It will not happen again, but I can very much see him being held to under 10.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah. We have one from Ben Thompson at Ben_son of Tomp. Which street is the championship parade going to be on?
It's Broadway. Has it ever not been down Broadway?
Well, it's only happened once, so I don't know if we know.
Well, I mean, yeah. So if we're going off that, I mean, unless we're not going to 82nd. I know that for damn sure.
I would want to parade down Sandy in front of the liquor store, right, and past the zipper. Like, that's where I want to go. Let's go.
I'll tell you where mine will be here in New Orleans. It'll be down Esplanade near the French Quarter. I'll duck into Buffet's, get my standard Esplanade shot in Miller Lite combo, and then just go into the quarter and lose myself. That's where mine will be.
No, you know what? I think if it comes to that, there needs to be a GoFundMe that me and Brandon need to start to get some of the Blazer faithful flown in for the parade.
Yeah.
If the Blazers win the championship, I will fly home. Like, just no problem. I'll fly home for sure.
Yeah. Because I'm gonna say if it comes down to where they're like, oh yeah, I can't afford a plane ticket. No, we're starting the GoFundMe. We're getting Neela up here. We're bringing Dia back. It's happening.
I will go up. I will be up there. I promise you.
That would be right.
I have a fucking ticket that I bought before the pandemic that I still need to use before the year's over. So there you go.
Yeah.
Shout out to New Orleans, by the way. I've only been
shout out.
I've only been the one time, and it was just
get down here.
I know it was pretty stunning. I know that.
Let me tell you. I just had a couple of homies that came last weekend. And things have really opened up down here. Just like the other day, they're now saying you don't need to wear masks indoors, which I still do. It's my personal preference. But we had a weekend. Let me tell you, we really got after it. Like really got after it. So get down here.
I was supposed to go down there last year for the 5-year anniversary trip, but damn pandemic put some kiboshes in that.
Some quick positive COVID news, because some of this stuff I do a little bit for my work. They just announced that the Pfizer vaccine seems to be effective against all of these various mutations of COVID, which is like really, really, really good news. Because as we know, viruses change and evolve over time. That's why we have to get a flu shot every year, right? Because it changes a little bit. But so far, the way that COVID has been changing, the vaccines we currently have is still effective against it, and that's just really, really good news. So shout out to the people working on vaccines. This is the last one I had in the list. It wasn't a question in response to us, but something I saw on Twitter I wanted to lift up from Ian at ENC Rose City. Oh, sorry, go for it. What was that?
I was going to say, I think Evan should handle this one because he is the out-of-towner.
Hit me with it.
This is to Evan then. Ian says, I really wish people outside of Portland understood how valuable Jusuf Nurkic is to the team. His passing completely, systematically changes our offense. We go from running iso ball to cutting and off-ball movement through Nurkic's passing. So I think what Ian is saying is that people who cover the NBA don't really give enough respect to Nurkic's passing. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, like what's his opinion, or what's the opinion of Nurk amongst other basketball fans and whatnot, and outside the Portland market too?
Yeah, well, outside, like down here in New Orleans, like basketball is not a high priority. So like, even my friends that watch basketball down here, I think it would be tough to get an honest opinion of Jusuf Nurkic out of them because they probably just, again, when it ties into the media, not really talking about him. In regards to his passing, like I totally agree with everything that Ian said. He opens up a lot more. I agree with the backdoor cuts. Like again, last night, like you mentioned, Brandon, that threaded the needle past Melo. He's great at doing that. But I mean, the major impact that Nurk has on this team, and it's obvious, is his defense on the defensive end. Like we are just so much better defensively when he's there. And I know we had historically one of the worst defenses in the NBA, whatever. And then the second he comes back, it trends towards mediocre to actually good, like a good defensive team. And that's not like, it's not a coaching thing. Obviously, a few years ago, we had a top 6 defense with the same essentially coaching staff in place. So like, I think his impact, while the passing is there, and I do think it encourages more movement on the offensive end, I think his impact is much more felt on the defensive end.
Yeah. I think that's good analysis. Ryan?
No.
Well, the last thing on this, I would say that, when I listen to national podcasts, they do talk about Nurkic. His passing, I don't think comes up enough because it's critical. I think to Ian's point, it does unlock a lot for this Blazers team. Really, really quick, I'm going to spend 20 seconds on this, but a couple weeks ago, I said if the Blazers do everything right, they're going to go 9-1. And guess what? During that stretch, they went 8-2. So
you were wrong.
Well, I was wrong, but the thrust of basically the last part of the season, I didn't want this to get lost. Went about as well as you could have hoped for the Blazers to put themselves in this position where they got Denver as the matchup, where they were able to win game 1. So let's close it on this. Any predictions for game 2, whether it's like an outcome or a thing that you think is going to keep happening or maybe a new twist? Because again, I mean, the playoffs are all about adjustments, right? Like the teams are seeing the same teams over and over again. But so anybody have any predictions or thoughts about what you think you might see from game 2? We'll start with Evan.
Yeah, I think that Norman Powell will be the second leading scorer for the Blazers in game 2.
Damn it, you stole my prediction.
Did I really?
You did. I think it's going to be a big game from Norm.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, because you got to think, here's the thing about Norm, and I would love to talk about this real quick about Norm, just real quick. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent this offseason. I personally do not think there is any chance that he's going to re-sign with the Portland Trail Blazers. I just don't. I don't think that he has any interest in being the third option on a team like this when he can go somewhere else. I mean, he's already won a title with the Raptors. I think that he's going to want to be more of a feature on a team offensively than just being the third guy. But that being said, let's enjoy the time we have with him now. And I think he's going to have a big bounce back game in game 2 because, again, contract year, unrestricted free agent. He's got to play well.
Let me respond in this way. If the Blazers in their system have done everything they can, given that they already have 2 primary ball handlers, have done everything they can to give Norm opportunities and to elevate him. So, I agree that the question of whether or not he resigns, I don't know. It's a big question. It's scary, but I do think that the Blazers, they've done everything in their power to elevate him, given they already have Dame and CJ. And also, B, the Blazers have been very, very successful with him. And so my hope, you're making the argument he's already won a title, so maybe he just wants to find a team where he'd maybe be the second option, and I have an elevated role. I would argue maybe Powell cares so much about winning that the balance of, I'm on a good team, and they really respect me and they're elevating me as much as they can, given that they already have Dame and CJ, maybe that will convince him to stay. But I agree that the question of whether or not he resigns is it's spooky. It's scary days.
I think he's going to New York. That's my prediction. The Knicks have the money and they're good. And he would slot in as, with Julius Randle, he would be the first or second best player on that team.
Biggest thing with him, though, is he's talked, all his family's on the West Coast. And and he's talked about wanting to be closer to them. The other fun caveat to think of, too, is that Toronto, living there and paying their taxes in Canada, it is absolutely astronomical. It's the one time where it would be a lot more financially beneficial for him to take a contract in Portland coming from Canadian taxes.
There we go. Hey, finally we're getting the
I hope. Hey, whenever I say this on Twitter, people are like, why do you hate Norm? I'm like, I don't hate Norm. I would love for him to stay. I just don't think he's going to.
It's just
I would love for him to stay in Portland.
The Blazers traded away a guaranteed opportunity to keep somebody. They traded that away for not at all the guaranteed opportunity to keep somebody, right? Like that was the biggest thing when the Norman Powell trade first happened, and everybody, at Golden PDX, follow me on Twitter. What I said was, I'm pretty sure that Olshey must have talked to Norm and his agent. Subsequent reporting has suggested that conversation did not happen, that they don't even have a soft commitment from Norman to staying in Portland. And so that makes it scary. And I do think that when you look at this trade in a historical view, like 2 or 3 years later, if Norman Powell doesn't stay, it doesn't matter how well the Blazers do this year, unless they get to the finals or something. It kind of doesn't matter how good they do if they don't keep him, because the alternative would have been to perhaps overpaying Gary Trent Jr., but they would have had the guaranteed opportunity.
You have an asset
to keep him. Exactly. And losing an asset like that for nothing would be terrible. So
I say it's only worth it if they win. If they win it all, then I don't care if he walks.
Well, correct. That's what I'm saying. I think if they somehow get to the finals, I also don't think it matters. I'm like, okay, fine. That's look.
Because then you're losing a major piece of how you got there, and you still have a step to take.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess I'm just saying, to me, the Blazers getting to the finals is in the context of this franchise, is a big enough deal to where, okay, that gamble was maybe worth it. I don't know.
Dame would be very happy with that. Exactly. I know there's always a speculation of he says he wants to stay, he wants to stay, he wants to stay. I always caution fans of saying, don't be shocked if, one day he wakes up and he's like, you know what, I'm growing older in age. I've done everything I can for this franchise. I don't feel like the front office is putting the pieces around me to put me in a position to legitimately win a championship. I would like to go somewhere else. Don't be shocked if that day comes.
Then he also, the one caveat to that I would say is then he needs to do a better job of recruiting, which he has openly said that he doesn't necessarily feel as though it's his job to recruit other players to come. But if you're going to have a complaint that nobody's coming to play, but you're not doing a good job of asking them to come play with you.
Well, and by the way, not to say that Carmelo Anthony was the hugest free agent signing, but I think that was a demonstration of both Dame and CJ.
Yeah, they worked on him for 2 years.
They lobbied him pretty hard, right? And the other thing to Olshey's credit, I do think, and all of this we could talk about for half an hour apiece, but I think the calculation they made with Melo was, okay, maybe he's not as good as he once was, but the impact of having a Hall of Fame player say, this is a good franchise, I want to be here, they treat you right, that matters. NBA players really respect Carmelo Anthony. They really, really do. And I think that the Blazers making that calculation to say, even if it maybe hurts us a little bit, sometimes we're playing 22 minutes a game when maybe you should be getting 12, that the impact that can have on your organization is potentially massive. I'm not saying it means that free agents are going to be knocking down the door to come to Portland, but in a market where it's hard to get somebody, that could matter at some point. So I don't know. I give Noel Shea credit for that.
Throw us out on a high note. Somebody. That was all just a depressing, how's the future going to look segment.
The high note.
Give me the high note.
The high note is this. Game 1, the Blazers won on the road by double digits, and they didn't play their best. That's the high note, right? Like, we don't know how the series is going to end. The Blazers are probably not going to sweep, but that's the high note, is that they could be better. So that's me. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Evan, all you.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with what Brandon just said. Yeah, it just feels good to be up game 1. It puts Denver squarely behind the 8 ball because now there is no home court advantage. And I thought that we were going to get 1 in Denver, but like getting the first game, I think is crucial because again, like what can Denver do to force Portland's hand to play the way that Denver would prefer we would play given their roster construction currently with injuries? I don't think Denver's in a good spot. So yeah, that the high note is that I'm feeling good about our prospects of winning this series sooner rather than later as well.
And for the detractors that are going to try to point out, well, the Blazers won game 1 last year against the Lakers. Yeah, but
come on.
But that was
is also totally different.
Exactly. But I've seen it before. And it's just to Evan's point, what we saw last night from the Blazers was a lot more sustainable and repeatable necessarily than playing absolutely lights out balls to the wall to beat the Lakers in game 1 and then run out of steam.
Exactly. So with that, Evan, we appreciate you. It was really good to see you, actually getting to see you this time through video. And Fat Man, who's
Fat Man Live,
now doing what I should be doing and taking a nap.
His frisbee, what a weirdo.
How much tequila did he drink last night?
So here's the thing. I was actually pretty good. I waited. I went on a bike ride before the game, went to Bufa's on Esplanade. It's like part of my route. I had a beer shot combo and then came back home, and I didn't start drinking until the end of the first quarters when I first took my first shot at home because I wanted to make sure I was lucid and paying attention to the game. And it really worked. When the game was over, I started knocking back for sure because we had to celebrate that W.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. No, 1,000%. Okay, Evan, if people wanted to connect with you, if they wanted to drink with you virtually, if they wanted to buy your stuff, how could they connect with you?
Yes, so you can find me on Twitter and all my terrible takes where there's random people just come at me all the time now. Evan M PDX, it's EVANEM PDX, and it's also Instagram. Don't use Instagram as much, but my website is evanm.com, and it's got all the prints. I'm working on a painting right now that I've been working on for a few months, and it's going to take me a few months to make. It's not Blazer related, but it is going to be the most impressive painting I've ever made, and I'm very excited for it. It's just taking a long time, so keep an eye out for that.
That's awesome. I actually saw you just recently sold your large Zion Williamson kind of skybox retro painting.
Yeah,
you did. That was dope.
Shout out to Michael Zordon, who just randomly hit me up on Twitter. I'm not sure who the gentleman is. He's just a follower, and he was interested, and we made it happen. I went and shipped it this morning. So
that's awesome.
Shout out to him for helping supporting me and letting me be able to do this stuff.
And nice. Shout out to you, Evan, and shout out to the listeners for supporting us. I'm just going to do the outro in one take. If you want to reach out to our show, you can do it at WeLikeTheBlazers.com. You can also find us on Twitter at just like the Blazers. You can hit me up at GoldnerPDX. You can hit Ryan up at the Witty Ryan.
Correct.
Great.
The Witty Ryan. And real quick, I have an answer. 3 Survivor contestants have been on the challenge. There is Jay Starrett, Natalie Anderson, and the Turabai Kamir Kran. It's one of the guys where if you saw him, you recognize him. Turabai Kamir. Oh my! I
thought you were gonna say like Boston Rob or Parvati or like one of these like super.
Those are too big. Those are too big a gets. But
yeah,
the Natalie chick, didn't that Natalie chick win Survivor?
Yes. And I think Jay was a finalist.
All right. Maybe
Jay.
maybe I need to watch all 40 seasons of Survivor yet again. But that's it for the show. We appreciate all of you. Check us out. Check out Evan's work. Until next time, go Blazers.
Go Blazers.